You know those picture-perfect suburbs where every lawn looks like it's been photoshopped and every mailbox matches the HOA handbook? That was Willow Grove Estates when I moved in 3 years ago. White picket fences, kids on bikes, the smell of fresh-cut grass on Saturday mornings. I was Ethan Brooks, 42, recently divorced, trying to rebuild some sense of normal after my ex took the dog and half the furniture. My son Tyler stayed with me every other weekend, and all I wanted was a quiet backyard where I could store the lawnmower, rakes, and that leaky wheelbarrow without tripping over them in the garage every time he came over. Simple, right? The first red flag should have been the welcome packet. 32 pages of community standards that read like a prison rulebook written by someone with too much time and not enough therapy. But I smiled, signed the papers, and thought, how bad can it be? Then came the morning I'll never forget. 7:05 a.m., coffee still brewing, and there she was, Linda Grayson, HOA president, clipboard in one hand, fake smile glued to her face like it was Botoxed on. Behind her stood 2 board members who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Linda tapped her pen on my back door like she owned the place. Ethan, we need to talk about your proposed shed. I hadn't even submitted the paperwork yet. I'd just measured the spot next to the fence. Proposed? I was planning to file today. She waved a printed copy of my rough sketch I'd stupidly emailed the board for feedback. We reviewed it unofficially. Denied. It violates historical sightlines. I stared at her. Linda, this neighborhood was built in 1987. The only historical thing around here is the Domino's down the street that still uses the same coupon from 2012. She sniffed the way only a true Karen can. Part superiority, part allergies. Community character must be preserved, Ethan. We all sacrifice for the greater good. Greater good. That phrase would haunt me. I tried reason. It's an 8x10 shed. Metal. Gray. Matches every other house on the block. Linda's smile tightened. Rules are rules. Any attempt to build will result in daily fines starting at $250. That was the moment something in me clicked. Not rage, not yet, just a cold, quiet decision. If they wouldn't let me build above ground, I'd go under it. But I didn't say a word. I just nodded, thanked her politely, and watched her strut away like she'd won the Super Bowl. The next weeks were death by 1,000 paper cuts. First notice, lawn edging inconsistent with standards. My edging was straight. Hers was crooked, but she'd approved her own. Second, trash bin visible 47 seconds past 8 a.m. Pickup. Third, excessive reflection from windows. My windows. Regular glass. Neighbors started whispering. Mrs. Patel next door gave me that pitying look at the mailbox. Just comply, Ethan. It's easier. I smiled back. Sure thing. But inside I was already printing every bylaw PDF the county website had. Late at night, after Tyler went to bed, I'd sit at the kitchen table highlighting contradictions. One section said auxiliary structures must be above grade. Another section never defined above grade. Signatures on the 2011 update looked photocopied from the 2004 version. Smelled like fraud. I stayed patient. I smiled at the inspections. I let them photograph my sprinkler head like it was a crime scene. But every night, I added more pages to the binder growing on my desk. And every time Linda drove by in her golf cart with the HOA logo, I waved like we were old friends. She hated that. You could feel the tension building in the air like a storm nobody wanted to admit was coming. The harassment didn't stop at paper. One Saturday, I caught 2 board members, Linda's loyal lapdogs, pacing my property line with measuring tapes and phones recording. Routine compliance check, one muttered when I stepped outside. Routine for what? My grass is exactly 2.75 inches. I measured it with the same laser tool you guys use. They scurried away like roaches when the light flips on. But the notices kept coming. Suspicious soil displacement. There was none. Noise violation from yard work. I hadn't touched a tool. It felt personal. Like I'd become the neighborhood's designated scapegoat. Tyler noticed during his weekend visit. Dad, why is that lady always staring at our yard? He was 14, smart, and already picking up on the vibe. I lied. Just HOA stuff, buddy. Nothing to worry about. But inside I felt that dad guilt knife twist. I'd moved here for stability. Instead, I was giving my kid front row seats to suburban tyranny. That's when I met Gary from 2 houses down, the only guy who'd talk straight. He leaned over the fence one evening, beer in hand. They did the same to the last owner. Find him into selling. Linda gets off on it. Power trip. Her husband left her years ago, and now the HOA's her whole personality. Gary lowered his voice. You know the bylaws haven't been recertified since 2009? County never stamped the updates. And that historical sightlines rule? She made it up after she built her own glass sunroom addition without asking anyone. My ears perked. She has a sunroom? Biggest eyesore on the block. All glass. Reflects like a disco ball. But she got the board to approve it in a closed session nobody remembers voting on. That night I dug deeper into the county archives. Sure enough, the 2009 bylaw packet was missing the certification stamp. And buried in an old email chain from a retired board member, I found screenshots. Linda pressuring the secretary to backdate signatures. I printed everything. The binder was now 3 inches thick. But I still played dumb. When Linda taped another violation to my door at 6 a.m., I waved and said, "Morning, Linda. Beautiful day to protect the community, huh?" Her eye twitched. She wasn't used to calm. She was used to people folding. The digging started small, just test holes I called yard aeration for better grass health. Linda lost her mind the first time she saw the mini excavator. This is unapproved excavation. I held up the printed bylaws. Page 47, subsection C. Restrictions apply solely to structures erected above grade level. Nothing about below. I'm just improving soil drainage. Her face went the color of a ripe tomato. We will fight this. Bring it, I said softly. I've got time. That was the first time I saw real fear flicker behind her perfect makeup. She knew I wasn't bluffing anymore. The twist hit like a freight train 2 weeks later. I was in the backyard at dusk, measuring the pit depth, when old Mr. Hargrove, the 78-year-old who'd been on the original board, shuffled over with a shoebox of papers. Son, I've been watching. You remind me of myself before I quit in disgust. He pulled out faded emails. Linda forged the 2011 vote on the Sightlines Amendment. Never passed. She just wrote it in after the fact so she could bully people while keeping her own illegal sunroom. And look, her sunroom glass panels violate the exact same rule she's using on you. I took these photos in 2018. The pictures were gold, Linda's backyard monstrosity, all reflective glass, sticking out like a sore thumb. The timestamp proved it was built without proper board approval. I felt that delicious rush of adrenaline mixed with cold fury. Not only were the bylaws expired and unenforceable, but the queen herself was living in a glass house throwing stones. Literally. I think Mr. Hargrove scanned every page and added them to the binder. That night, I didn't sleep. I called a contractor friend of Gary's, Big Mike, the kind of guy who doesn't ask questions if you pay cash. How deep can we go without permits? Deep enough the HOA can't see it, he grinned. Call it a root cellar on paper. On reality, whatever you want. Construction began at dawn the next day. The excavator rumble woke half the street. Linda arrived in her golf cart like a general charging into battle, clipboard flapping. Cease and desist immediately. I held up the county printout. Above grade only, Linda. Read your own rules. Or should I say the rules you forged? Her voice cracked. This is harassment. No, I said calmly. This is me following the law you pretend to enforce. By the way, nice sunroom. How's the view from that illegally approved glass box? The color drained from her face. For the first time she looked small. Neighbors started coming out on porches, phones up, recording. The tide was turning, and she felt it. Over the next 10 days the pit became a full 2-level bunker shell, reinforced concrete, proper drainage, even a small ventilation system. Big Mike worked like a man who enjoyed sticking it to Karens. Every time Linda drove by I'd wave and yell. Soil's looking great today. The rumors exploded. He's building a doomsday bunker. He's hiding something. But I just kept smiling. Because I had the photos. I had the forged signatures. I had the expired bylaws. And I had the one thing Linda never counted on, patience. The emergency HOA meeting was called for Thursday night. The clubhouse was packed. People who never showed up were there. Linda stood at the front in her power blazer, trying to look in control. We are here because one resident is endangering our entire community with unauthorized digging. I waited until she finished her dramatic slideshow of my yard looking like a war zone. Then I stood. The room went dead quiet. Before we vote on anything, I said, voice steady, I'd like to share a few documents. I walked to the projector and plugged in my laptop. First slide, the missing certification stamp. Gasps. Second slide, the forged email chain. Whispers. Third slide, photos of Linda's sunroom. The silence broke into chaos. Linda sputtered. Those are taken out of context. I smiled the sweetest smile I could muster. Context is, you violated the exact rule you're punishing me for. And you forged board votes to do it. How's that for community character? A woman in the back yelled, Is that true, Linda? The board members started shifting in their seats like they smelled a sinking ship. The meeting turned into a circus. Linda tried to shut it down. This is not the time or place. I kept my tone polite, almost friendly. Actually, Linda, this is exactly the place. You called the meeting to punish me. Fair is fair. I clicked to the next slide. The county zoning clarification that explicitly said subsurface structures were outside HOA jurisdiction. Page 14 of your own bylaws, which haven't been legally valid since Obama's first term. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Real laughter. The kind that stings. One board member, quiet Mrs. Patel, finally spoke up. Linda, did you really forge those signatures? Linda's mask cracked. I did what was necessary for the neighborhood. Gary yelled from the back. Necessary for your ego. You mean? The vote to suspend all enforcement against me passed 11-2. Linda was the only one who voted no. She stormed out, heels clicking like angry gunfire. But I knew she wasn't done. Power addicts never are. The real showdown came 2 weeks later at the county zoning hearing. The room smelled like old wood and nervous sweat. Linda showed up with a lawyer who looked like he'd rather be defending parking tickets. I brought my binder, Big Mike's structural drawings, and Mr. Hargrove as a witness. The zoning officer, M.S. Ramirez, didn't waste time. Mr. Brooks, you claim the HOA has no authority over your project. Yes, ma'am. Their bylaws expired in 2009. They never recertified. And their president has her own unpermitted addition that violates the same imaginary rule she used against me. Linda jumped up. This is character assassination. M.S. Ramirez raised one eyebrow. Sit down, Mrs. Grayson. We've reviewed the documents. The bylaws are invalid. The sunroom photos are compelling. And forging official records? That's a different conversation with the county attorney. The room erupted. Board members looked like they wanted to disappear into the carpet. I didn't gloat. I just laid out the facts. All I ever wanted was a place to store my kid's bike and my lawnmower. Instead, I got 2 years of harassment. I'm not asking for punishment. I'm asking to be left alone on my own property. M.S. Ramirez ruled right there. The HOA's enforcement actions are null and void. Mr. Brooks may continue construction. Further, the board is ordered to cease all inspections until new, legally certified bylaws are submitted and approved. Linda's lawyer tried one last Hail Mary. We will appeal. M.S. Ramirez smiled thinly. You're welcome to. But I suggest your client consult a real estate attorney first. Forgery carries penalties. The gavel fell. The sound was the sweetest music I'd ever heard. The aftermath was pure poetry. Within a month, Linda resigned for personal reasons. The new interim president was Mrs. Patel, who immediately sent a neighborhood email apologizing for past overreach and promising actual community input. Fines against everyone were dropped. People started talking again instead of whispering. My bunker finished 6 weeks later. 2 full levels, reinforced walls, proper lighting, even a little gaming corner for Tyler. The upper level became the tool shrine. Lawnmower, rakes, wheelbarrow, all dry and organized. The lower level was my man cave. Bean bags, projector, mini fridge stocked with root beer for father-son weekends. The crowning touch? I framed the original denied permit and hung it on the wall under a spotlight right next to the single rake I'd originally wanted to store. Title on the plaque, The Shed That Never Was. Thanks, Linda. Tyler's face when he saw it for the first time? Priceless. Dad, this is the coolest thing ever. Neighbors started stopping by. Some just to stare at the perfect lawn hiding the secret entrance. Others wanted tours. One guy even asked if I'd help him fight his own HOA. I told him the truth, read the rules. Then read them again. And never, ever let them think you're scared. The best moment came on a quiet Sunday morning. I sat on the back steps with coffee, watching the sun rise over the same perfect lawn everyone obsessed over. No notices. No golf cart drive-bys. Just birds and the faint hum of the bunker's ventilation system below my feet. Linda's house went on the market 2 months later. She moved to a condo downtown. No yard, no HOA to rule. Last I heard, she was president of the building's social committee. Poor residents. I never built the shed. Never needed to. 20 feet under my grass sits 2 levels of reinforced concrete that Linda's rules could never touch. And every time I climb down those stairs, I remember the simple lesson this whole circus taught me. Petty tyrants only win when good people stay quiet. Sometimes the best way to protect your home isn't by shouting louder. It's by digging deeper. And if the HOA ever tries to pull that nonsense again, well, I've still got room for one more level.